Ralph, for me, probably was took it the most serious of all of us. Well, except for Tom Cruise. Tom took it to another level. We were like, dude, your part is tiny. What are you doing here, man? He was like, you don't understand. I'm going to be Lord Cruise in 5 minutes, right? So we didn't know. And then toward the end of the production, Tom was like, I'm gonna go to Chicago and do this thing called risky business. We're like, well, go have a good time with whatever the hell that is. And it was like 6 months later, we're all sliding in our socks in our tidy whities singing Bob Seger, you know? We couldn't believe it. I was like, I got my Tom Cruise Ray-Bans, and it was the next summer, the guy was the biggest thing in the world. It was crazy.
And you could you could feel how like
without a doubt. Now, Tom, here was Tom, right? Tom was the guy that so after the Rumble, he shows up the next day and he went to the dentist and had a tooth removed. He had like a cap on the front of his tooth. He had it removed, and he shows up and he shows Francis. He's like, what do you think? He didn't have his tooth. And Francis, when you look back at it, starts on Tom as he starts to pan across, and Tom's like this, like, what do you think? Wait, does it look tough or something like that? That's all him. You know, Tom can't just exit the building. He's got to climb the chain link fence and do the backflip. You know, he's got to get on the car and forward roll. He just can't can we just exit the frame? No, he takes everything to the next level. And all that stuff's true. You know, when he talks about the stunts that he does in Mission Impossible, what they don't talk about is that they'll have his stuntman do it first. And he looks at it and he's like, okay, he survived that 40,000-foot leap out of the plane. I'm down, and he'll do it. And he does. So he's courageous that way. And he is super business-minded. He is extremely calculative, and he knows what's going on with everybody on the set, and he doesn't put up with shenanigans. And if you're not there to better the group, you're politely going to be tapped on the shoulder and probably not be coming back tomorrow, but in a nice way. That's just who he is, and that's how he needs to operate. And I would love to work with him again.
Other than St. Elmo's Fire, were there other couple roles you really, really wanted? Or
I was Marty McFly for 2 weeks.
Just,
you know, they brought me in, and I was rehearsing and working, and basically had the role. And I remember being in makeup, and I got a sort of a memo to call my agent. And a movie that weekend came out called Mask, and it was starring Eric Stoltz and Cher, and it was a big hit. And it was for Universal, who did Back to the Future. And from the very top, they said, listen, we think we're going to go with Eric Stoltz and not Tommy Howell. And they sent me packing. And they shot with him for a month or so. And for whatever reason, it didn't speak to the studio, the performance. And they replaced him with Michael J. Fox. And what a process to get what they got. And Fox was fantastic in it. And he was quite hot as Alex P. Keaton. And was that Family Ties that he did? Was that show? Yeah. So that was huge at the time in the 80s. And they probably went the right way. But, you know, that hurt a little bit getting that memo. I was a kid, and you can't quite grasp that not being personal. It was not a personal move. It wasn't that I did something or they saw some work they didn't like. It just, we want to go with this guy who just opened up big for us. And it didn't work.
On Young Toscanini, I think I read you hung out with Elizabeth Taylor a lot. And I think she was great. She's a great storyteller. Do you remember any of the stories she was telling?
She's so amazing. Well, I was just fascinated with James Dean. So she would tell me all these stories about James Dean, because I did a photo shoot with Herb Ritts with Patrick Swayze where I played James Dean. It was with Rosanna Arquette, and Glenn Scarpelli played Sal Mineo. And it was a really cool thing. And I've been a James Dean fan my whole life. So to be able to sit there and hear stories about, you know, what happened on Giant. And she told me a story that was just shocking, but brilliant. She said that he was so self-conscious and he was so self-aware, painfully so, that he was incredibly shy. And there was about 400 people roped off on the set of Giant, and he had to go do an emotional scene, and all these people were standing there watching him. And he said, I don't want those people. And they said, look, we got them roped off, and it's their right to be there, and it's just kind of part of the deal, and you got to do it. So he was kind of taking his time, and they were like, Mr. Dean, please, we gotta get this scene going. So he opened up the door of the trailer and he stepped out, he looked at everybody, and kind of turned around and he just took a leak right there, kind of in front of everybody. And people were mortified. And they said, what are you doing? He said, well, I figured if I could do that, I could do the scene. Let's go.
And you got to spend 11 months with her then in Italy filming.
Yeah, she was strange because she wasn't a part of the whole production, but I did about half of that time with her. And my father came to visit me. Boy, she loved my daddy. She just wanted to hear bull riding stories all day long. And she liked to hold court. Elizabeth Taylor was she was a real princess, man. She was the real deal, though. She, I'll never forget, Malcolm Forbes showed up on our set, brought 2 Fabergé eggs. I think one of them was worth like $7 million. I mean, Fabergé eggs from Russia. She lost it, man. Oh my God. Squealed, had 2 Fabergé eggs, disappeared. The director was like in tears. No, she was gone for 10 days. Didn't tell anybody anything. Gone. Literally shooting around for 10 days. Nobody could find her. She shows up like she was gone for 5 minutes. Just comes in. Hello, darlings. The director fell apart. He was like, where the hell have you been? She says, sweetheart, when Malcolm Forbes shows up with 2 Fabergé eggs and says, let's go, you go. I was like, and there it is, man. You know what I mean? She got 2 gifts worth more than the budget of our film. What is she going to do? Hang out? No, we'd all be gone, right? It was brilliant. So I got a little taste of old Hollywood, and it was fantastic. My dad was so shrewd, and he was quite clever with the business. So my audition for E.T. came from his agency, mind you, because I'd go visit he had a commercial agent or something, and I'd go visit the people there. And we got a call from the agent that said, listen, Spielberg's casting this role and you got to go. Well, of course they called my father. I knew nothing about it. And I was picked up from school from my dad. And I never asked why. I just would get in the car as you did. Today you get a bunch of, mouthy kids wanting to know stuff. But back then, you just did what you were told. So we started driving. We pull into 7-Eleven and he goes in and he buys a pack of cigarettes and some matches and tells me we're going in on audition and I got to know how to smoke because that was a requirement. Steven wanted my character to smoke cigarettes. So all the way down there, he's teaching me to strike the match and light the cigarette. And I got a soft pack of Marlboros or something like that. And we get there and we walk in and there's like 4 kids that look identical. They all look like John Stamos with that dark feathered hair and blue eyes. And they're just like, I got Uncle Jesse, Uncle Jesse, Uncle Jesse, Uncle Jesse. Right? And I'm like, there ain't no chance in hell I'm getting this part, Dad. And I said, look, one of these things ain't like the other, and I ain't going to be it. So I was the last one to go. And I went in. These boys went out one at a time. And I went in. I was like, okay. And there he is, man, Steven. He's right there. And he's got a bunch of people behind him. And I'm sitting there in this chair. And I'm kind of looking around, I don't even know who he is. So that was the beauty back then. I didn't know who Francis Ford Coppola was. I didn't even know what an Oscar was when I was 13 years old. I didn't care. I wasn't impressed by their resumes or credits. All I knew is they weren't a 2,000-pound bull. And I just been riding that, So it put me on a different ground for that. And when he got to me and he started asking me questions if I could ride the bike and if I had a problem, with smoking cigarettes. And I just sort of reached out and pulled up a crumpled pack of the old Marlboros and pulled out a cigarette. It was bent, I was sticking it in my mouth. And I'm striking a match. I'm shaking, trying to get this thing. He's fine. He's like, okay, kid, you got the part. So, I think a lot of that was just my father's willingness to go the extra mile at work and kind of. I didn't smoke in the audition. I did on the set. I smoked a couple puffs, and they put it in the film. They might have even cut it out since because they've done that to that film. But that's just the type of, my father was just a thinker like that, when we did The Outsiders to give me a slight edge. And this is a true story. He did some homework And to beat the California child labor laws, he went and had me emancipated so I could work as an adult. I was one of the first ones to do that. That was my father's ingenuity. So when he went in with me, by the way, let the producers know, he's can work 15-hour days. He doesn't got to work an 8-hour day. And, you know, that might have had something to do with it.